Hey, CompGov students, can you believe what's going on with this pandemic? It's just, when we started to talk about the number of cases that were springing up around the world, I don't think we had any idea that this was going to affect us so personally. But here we are with distance learning. In my message to you over Schoology, I suggested that we don't know what's going to happen with the AP exams or anything. We need to keep going despite the fact that, things are so crazy in the outside world. I am going to just continue to screencast away. I'm going to do the rest of the China material over the next couple of days here. And we'll just see what happens. There's a lot of speculation, though, that we won't be at school for a while. So I'm going to just proceed with China, get it all screencasted, and I believe Iran is already screencasted. So we are just going to work our way through the curriculum as though, this was a normal deal. And I'm going to start by finishing up the history PowerPoint. We got almost done. I think the last thing that we did was to talk about Tiananmen Square and the Tank Man and whatnot. An interesting deal. I think we left off with Deng Xiaoping and, sending all these people out to get their knowledge and so forth, and trying to bring China up to the 21st century or 20th century rather, with regard to, the technological breakthroughs worldwide. That they did, but they also then subjected themselves to a lot of democratic influence, and that's what led to the whole Tiananmen Square event. And important to note that in other cities as well, they were having protests and people, calling for democracy as well as economic liberalization. So after that, we went into, hang on one sec. Okay, sorry guys, I'm at school and people are coming in the door here. It's Tuesday and just had to stop for a second. But after Deng Xiaoping dies in 1997, the next person who comes, who becomes general secretary of the party is a guy by the name of Jiang Zemin. And President Jiang, will be the first to hold positions of both the General Secretary of the CCP and the President of the People's Republic of China. And that's kind of, a takeaway from Jiang is that, and remember, Chinese names, last names go first. So General Secretary and President Jiang, he will start this precedent where leaders of China will hold both the highest ranking political party position and the highest ranking government position. So his whole thing is going to be continue what Deng started. In fact, every leader after Deng is going to make sure that they are, continuing the economic growth and joining world trade and kind of bringing themselves up to 20th century, global trade, if you will. One important term, and I know I got to this in one class, but maybe not the other, and that is the word technocrat. This is an official with academic training, like an engineer, a business person, a lawyer, whatever, people who are going to be able to help with this whole economic growth and development. And this is going to be somebody who is pretty high ranking, very well educated, often scientific background. And what you're going to see is the standing committee of the Politburo is going to be filled with people who are technocrats. And even the Politburo itself going to be filled with technocrats. So that is a term that you should know. This is a term that's going to be used in other countries that we're going to study this semester as well. So technocrat, Jiang is the first. All right, and so then we're moving on to the next leader, which is Hu Jintao. President Hu serves from 2003 to 2013. The Constitution of 1982 is in effect. And this is the first time there's an orderly and peaceful transfer of power. The deal is, after Deng, who was there for quite a long time, 20 years, it's like, how are we doing this? And it wasn't that smooth with Jiang. There were a lot of competing factions. This time, it's much more orderly. with President Hu. And the Constitution said at the time that you serve 2 5-year terms and done, so that nobody can serve more than 10 years. Of course, Xi Jinping has changed that already. So, Hu is really the only one to have served those 2 consecutive 5-year terms. President Hu is going to continue his economic reforms and political repression. Don't think for a minute that the calls for democracy are going to be heard by anyone. They're going to be falling on deaf ears by all those high-ranking party leaders in China. And we'll talk more about President Hu shortly. Last but not least is Xi Jinping. President Xi has held the reins of President and General Secretary since 2013. And it's not looking like he's giving up those reins anytime soon. In fact, he is the one who canceled term limits. So people are expecting President Xi to be in power for a long time. The guy is not that old. Especially considering, the people running for president in our country. But in any event, he becomes known for his mantra, Chinese dream. Does that sound familiar to you? Well, it should, because it's a takeoff on the American dream. And his whole deal is, hey, Chinese citizens, you too can realize the Chinese dream of success and profitability and all these things. And he will pass his 4 comprehensives, kind of a takeoff on Deng Xiaoping's 4 modernizations. And his 4 comprehensives include economic prosperity. It includes deeper reforms, both political and economic. It's a crackdown on corruption because people have figured out how to game the system with the capitalist society now, and some have gotten so stinking rich, and he comes down on these people. He's like, this is not a good example to the rest of the Chinese who are starting to feel a little left out of the success, and he doesn't want to cause agitation within China. You don't want unrest bubbling up from below. So we don't want to be flaunting all of our success. He's also going to make sure that Communist Party rule remains strict and forceful, and that those members of the party are obedient to the party and so forth. So this is kind of his MO. He's worked really hard on this. He's managed to do a great job at it. It'll be interesting to see this whole economic prosperity piece. I mean, China has suffered too with the pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic. So we'll see if this has any, effect on their economy and how people feel, because this will be the first time that the Chinese will experience kind of a letdown in their economy since all this huge growth of Deng Xiaoping. She has been elevated, I should say, to a similar status as Mao Zedong. And, it's kind of shocking, but somehow he has managed to develop his own little cult of personality. I don't think it's kind of worldwide, but it certainly is in China itself. And as long as Chinese remain prosperous economically and their lives are better off, I don't think you'll see people calling for democracy. And again, he did cancel term limits. And last but not least, the impact of history on China. It's a strong state, and it's going to protect its sovereignty at all costs. And that is due to the past humiliations that occurred in the 19th and early 20th century. They do not want to undermine other people's sovereignty, and they will do anything to protect their own. They have a strong national identity, and last but not least, their economic success allows the CCP to continue to rule, and to rule with a heavy hand, and to rule very authoritatively, and to clamp down on people's civil rights. And as long as people are economically better off, they're going to be able to continue to do this. We haven't seen a time in history, though, when the rug gets pulled out of people economically, and they pretty much enjoyed a pretty nice standard of living, the large bulk of the, cities anyway. So we'll see what happens. It remains to be seen. All right, that's it for the history. That's all done. You've got the political institutions screencast. Fill out your charts. I'm going to try to do some kind of review of that maybe, or you can look at it in the matrix review too. And I'm going to be holding office hours if we continue after spring break. Just stay tuned for more information. And I'm going to go ahead and keep screencasting China. Please keep going on your note taking and learning the material on your own. Not ideal, but it's what we have to do. Thanks, everybody.